So I was chatting with two friends recently, and I actually wrote about this, but I'm just going to do a video about it. I was chatting with two friends at separate times recently, and they both had some words to say about, why they think I'm single, and, they identify me as like a great guy. They feel like I do have a lot to offer. I'm going to be a great husband, great father, all that, shebang, all that stuff, which was very nice to hear. They're two people that I value very closely, and I had the privilege of working with at one time. And so I remember I was chatting with the lady, and she was saying that your beliefs could be very intimidating for a lot of women. The fact that you're very confident in your faith, and the fact that you could explain it very clearly, and also that you don't agree with other philosophies and other views and other religions that don't align with what you're saying. You're actually blocking yourself from connecting with other ladies. And my other friend, a male, he actually kind of said something similar, but he went even further to say that it could be very intimidating for women, because maybe in their own faith, or it could be they have a faith that's similar or maybe the same faith, and because they're not as strong in their faith, that can be intimidating, that you're very assertive and you understand your faith, and saying Bible verses and all that stuff, and it could be very hard for a woman to want to connect with you when they feel like they don't know the same things that you know. And I can definitely understand their perspectives, especially my male friend, and he has more of an atheistic worldview. My other friend has a Roman Catholic worldview. And so although I don't subscribe to their doctrines and their views and their worldviews, I can definitely see that they cared about, my relationship status, or rather my lack of relationship status. And I can see they were trying their best to encourage me. But I can also see that where their advice was very limited. When a person comes to Christ, we are not called to blend in with the world. We're not called to reflect the world. We're not here to reflect what everyone else is doing. We're not supposed to be popping pills and getting drunk and posting inappropriate content on social media, degrading people, putting them down. And although a Christian is never going to be perfect, on this side of heaven, it's not until we transition to the next world and we receive our glorified body, and we won't get tempted and, by sin. But our calling is not to mix and mingle with the world, but to affect it and influence it for the better, to be the light, or that hill, on top of the hill, that mountain, or that, the city on top of the hill. That's something that Jesus made reference to in his Sermon on the Mount. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. When you stand out, when you're reflecting the nature of Christ, you're always going to stand out. And so instead of me really reviewing it as, well, hey, maybe I should dilute myself and water down my understanding of God and not mention things that, that God says about moral and ethical conduct, I see it as a repellent to keep away women that I shouldn't be intermingling with. I am not supposed to be intermingling with a drunk. I'm not supposed to be intermingling with a woman who's doing drugs. I'm not supposed to be intermingling with a woman who supports homosexuality. I'm not supposed to be intermingling with a woman who's okay with hopping from man to man, like some parasite, or, degrading herself. I'm not supposed to. And so it is actually a good thing that whatever women of the world, or maybe immature Christians or whoever else, are turned off by me. It's a good thing. I see it as a blessing. Because life is already complicated as it is. I don't want to complicate it even more, But it's something to keep in mind, something to consider. And I think a lot of us, we sort of, me included, when I was more immature in my faith, that, I don't know, I just thought that maybe it was time to tone it down. Maybe it was time to, maybe adopt a few views of the world and be less like Christ. But I'm not called to do that. And if that means that I'm going to be rejected socially and by family, and particularly in the dating world, I'm going to take that on. I'm going to accept that. I'm not here to intermingle with the world and get applause from it. I'm here to stand out, and it's going to stand out. I'm going to always stand out through my work ethics and how I speak and how I express myself and how I worship God, because I'm not somebody of this world. One of the most interesting passages in the Bible is Peter, one of his letters, he actually wrote his letters to Christians, and he referred to them as aliens. He referred to them as aliens, and it was like his just a different delivery, just to reaffirm and just remind them that they're not of this world. When God changes us, he literally starts killing off our desires to intermingle with this world and be less like the world and more like him. And so sometimes I try to explain that to people and it goes over their head because they don't get it. They think everybody wants to drink and everybody wants to get, party, and everybody wants, and they don't understand that when God changes you, you're not the same person anymore. You really do start losing interest in certain things. You start, your conscience is even amplified even more to direct you into the right conduct. It's something that you reflect his nature. Christ didn't die because, he wasn't killed because, he was doing bad things. He was killed and he was stood out and he was cursed and because he was actually good. He was actually good. And so Christians, real Christians, are always going to have a hard time. So I take it as a blessing to some degree. It's in the book of James, the very first paragraph, in the book of James, it says, count it all joy when you fall into temptations, and, you see it as a blessing. See it as an opportunity for God to sculpt you and make you more in his image. It's a blessing. It's something that we should rejoice for when we're going through challenges and rejections. So that's how I see it. And that's what I realize is a biblical understanding. So although I know my friends mean well, I know that that's not the answer. And it will never be the answer for a Christian. Because we're not here to intermingle with the world and be like the world. We're here to reflect Christ. We have a completely different destination than everyone else. And it's important that our actions show that as well. Hope this was helpful, guys, and encouraging. God bless you.